In the Sudan, there's no end to the fighting, and it seems no point in declaring a ceasefire either, because the violence just doesn't stop. On paper, the ceasefire was extended on Sunday for another 72 hours, but Sudan's army continues to bomb the capital, Khartoum. The armed forces are fighting a paramilitary group called the RSF, Rapid Support Forces, RSF. They're fighting for power. The worst hit is Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, also volatile regions like Darfur. Thousands of civilians have fled to neighboring nations. Some are taking land routes to Egypt or Chad. Others are flocking to Port Sudan at the Red Sea. They're trying to board evacuation ships.
Sudan is living through a moment of real terror. I'm talking about dead bodies in the streets. We smelled the dead bodies as we were coming from Khartoum. The firing, the shelling. Sudan is seriously in a state of real war.
The death toll keeps rising. The official figure is 500. The United Nations has reported a similar number, but it says the actual figure is most certainly much higher. And this is a conflict that the Sudan can ill afford. It was already among the poorest countries in sub-Saharan Africa. More than 600,000 children were being treated for acute malnutrition here. Now, the fighting has made it worse. The supply of life-saving aid is being disrupted.
It's a very difficult situation in Sudan, and it's like the context is complex in the sense that the scale of this conflict encompasses 2/3 of the country, essentially, the Darfur, Kordofans, Khartoum. So it's a very insecure situation that we're all finding ourselves in. But the work continues. The work is continuing, and we just really pray for peace in those conditions to be able to enable even more delivery of services and scale up of those services.
She says the conflict encompasses 2/3 of the country. Does this mean the Sudan is facing another civil war? Considering its history, this is definitely possible. The army is led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the country's de facto ruler. He took power in a coup in 2021. His opponent is a man called General Mohammad Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemedti. He leads the paramilitary force called RSF. Now, Burhan and Hemedti were allies during the 2021 coup, but since then they've fallen out, and now they've taken up arms against each other. What triggered the fight? Well, they couldn't agree on how the country will transition into a democracy and who will control the RSF. How will it be incorporated into the Sudanese army? Ostensibly, this is what the fight was about. But make no mistake, this is a battle for power. As things stand, democracy is not coming to Sudan anytime soon. Burhan has said he will never sit down with Hemedti. Both groups are backed by foreign governments, and they have their own agendas. There have been repeated ceasefires, but they fail to hold. The threat of a civil war looms, and it won't be a first for the Sudan. For much of its independent history, this country has seen civil war and conflict. The Sudan was jointly ruled by Britain and Egypt. In 1956, it got independence. 1 year before that, the first civil war had already begun. It lasted till 1972. Then in 1983, the second civil war began. It went on till the year 2005. It resulted in the division of the country. A separate nation of South Sudan was formed in 2011. The previous civil wars were broadly based on ethnic and religious fault lines, but this one is different. Because this time both leaders, Burhan and Hemedti, belong to the same ethno-religious group. Their fight is about power, not secession. But it makes little difference to the people who are suffering.
If we fail to act now, it will be too late. The rainy season is coming in few weeks, and if we don't provide any assistance to the people, the road will be blocked, and all the refugees here will be stuck. And we definitely need to provide assistance in terms of water, health, and shelter as quickly as possible, in order to food also, in order to ensure that people are safe and protected.
The Sudan has seen thousands killed and millions displaced over the years. The constant violence has left it impoverished. Another civil war will destroy this country. The combatants and their foreign governments backing them need to stop and come to the talking table.